Hello, everybody, and welcome. Shacknews presents Pop Goes the Culture. I am Donovan Erskine, news editor of Shacknews. This is Greg Berg, our head of video.
Ah,
This is episode 50. How are you all doing today? Greg, how are you doing
it's a
today?
the big 50. Big
Yeah,
50.
finally got there. We've been doing this show for quite a while to reach 50. It's been more than a year at this point, but because obviously we've skipped weeks, we've gone like a whole month without doing an episode, so definitely been doing this show for well over a year at this point. But 50 episodes, a good milestone. Here's to 50 more. But if you're
50
not
more.
familiar,
50 more up to episode
yeah.
100 when we'll be old men with beards complaining about everything.
If you're not familiar, Pop Goes the Culture is our show here at Shack News where we talk about movies, television, everything in the world of entertainment that isn't gaming, because we have enough of that content on here already. It is very excellent. And we've got some excellent things to talk about today. Greg, starting with this story that I think this just came out yesterday, I believe I saw this. Daniel Radcliffe, who you probably know as Harry Potter, is set to play Weird Al Yankovic in a biopic for Roku. So there's a couple of like interesting wrinkles to this story. But Greg, are you a Weird Al fan, and could you see Harry Potter playing him?
Oh yeah, obviously. Like I was in middle school, I was introduced to Weird Al and his story. Like I've read biographies. I don't think they were self-written, but I've read biographies and history of his career, and it's super interesting. Like he was like laughed out of a lot of meetings and rooms, and people told him, get out of here, kid. Like comedian or parody songwriters don't win like gold records and Grammys. Like you're a joke, you know what I mean? Like you're a gimmick. So like it's really cool reading all that stuff that he went to. And he actually, fun fact, he's more than just, it's not just Al Yankovic. He has like three other bandmates, and the joke, he always, when he goes in concerts, he always jokes about he doesn't know any of the bandmates' names because they've been with him for like 20 years, 30 years. So he has like a guitarist and a keyboardist and some other, I think a bassist. But yeah, so it's he's a really interesting. He's probably one of the most interesting artists in the entire world because he made a living based off parody songs, which is
Yeah.
insane. Like back in the
Mhm.
early 70s or late 70s, early 80s. So I mean, I don't care. I mean, I don't know why. This seems like a situation to me where Daniel Radcliffe's like, yeah, I want to do it, and like you don't say no to Daniel Radcliffe, so they're like, okay, you know.
Well, that's the interesting part, right? Is that this is supposed to be a Roku original movie, which news to me that Roku makes original content. Again, it goes back to what you talked about, like the streaming wars, and everybody wants their own original piece of content. They want to drive you to their platforms, and Roku is gonna put on this Weird Al biopic. Just hearing you talk about his story, it sounds like he has a story that's right for a biopic. They love those kind of stories of
Mhm.
like the underdog or like the guy that everybody said no to. Those are like your standard like success story biopics. I'm not all that familiar with Weird Al. I mean, I know who he is just tangentially through pop culture. I know Blake on staff is a big fan. I think he actually was like trying to get tickets to like one of his concerts or something in the next year or so.
Yeah, he's great
But
live. He actually has like he puts a lot of effort and energy, just like costume changes
mm,
and stuff. And his live performances are pretty kick-ass. I saw him at the Orange County Fair, and he was a champion because that same week both his parents had died to carbon monoxide poisoning.
Jesus Christ,
Yeah, both of them, and like he still performed that week. And I was like, damn, that's hardcore. So
God, that is like a nightmare scenario.
yeah, I'm like out of all the things, like you're a carbon monoxide poison, like in their house, like what the fuck? Like it's just so weird.
Yeah, yeah, seriously. And I had also saw when they announced this yesterday, some people were saying like Weird Al is probably gonna make like his own parody of the movie, and it'll come full circle, which is something I could probably see happening. I think it'd be pretty funny.
My thing, and I've tweeted him before with this was UHF 2, but win. I don't know if you ever seen that movie, a movie he produced in the '80s called UHF.
Mm-mm.
It's a really dated film, but it has a lot of breakout stars in it. It has the guy who played Kramer before he was racist, before people knew he was racist. Do you know what I'm talking about from Seinfeld? Yeah, it was one of his breakout roles
Yeah.
was that
Mm.
film. And there's a couple other '80s people in it too, and there's like funny running jokes, and they parody pop culture at the time, which is why it's a fun little '80s time capsule. They parody like Indiana Jones and Rambo and stuff. It's
Okay.
it's definitely a movie you should watch because it's an interesting time capsule. We should put it on the list. What if it's on Amazon Prime to watch? It'd be interesting if it was.
Maybe I don't know. It's interesting though that he's had such success in parody because, as most people on the internet know, like parody is not like easy to do. Like it's very easy for parody to just be like awful. Like there's a reason like you just don't see parody movies anymore. Even like parody songs. Like I remember it was so big like in the 2000s on YouTube. There were like parodies for everything. But even nowadays, you don't really like hear parodies of popular songs anymore. They don't really get as many views as they used to. So for him to have like sustained a career doing that across decades speaks to his creativity there. There's even a little synopsis that Roku provided. The movie's called "A Weird: The Al Yankovic Story." The biopic holds nothing back, exploring every facet of Yankovic's life, from his meteoric rise to fame with early hits like "Eat It" and "Like a Surgeon," to his torrid celebrity love affairs and famously depraved lifestyle. Weird: The Al Yankovic Story takes audiences on a truly unbelievable journey through Yankovic's life and career, from gifted child prodigy to the greatest musical legend of all time.
I hope a lot of it's truthful. I know a lot of times, and especially in documentaries and documentary pics, they change things to make things more interesting, and I don't know if I like
Uh-huh.
that in certain cases. I know there was a lot of controversy with the Queen movie. Well, I forget what
Yeah,
it was called. What was it just called? Queen?
Bohemian Rhap.
Bohemian
It's
Rhap.
Bohemian
Yeah.
Rhapsody.
So like they changed a lot in that movie, and a lot of like historians and musical experts were not happy with what they changed. The biggest change is probably there was not enough cocaine in that movie or not enough drugs in that movie, I guess, is one of the biggest complaints, because they were all doing that's just was part of the culture, I guess, when you're in rock and roll in the 80s, you know.
For
So
sure. I'm glad you read that because it makes me think of one of my favorite music biopics was Straight Outta Compton. It was about NWA, and I think that movie got a lot of criticism, a lot of similar criticism, where it's like, you guys really like glazed over some of the stuff that those dudes did and said. But I do remember like there's scenes in that movie where they're in like hotels and it's just like cocaine, weed like everywhere, people passing out, like losing their shit. But it's something that I guess happens when you have a biopic, a movie that's like about a real person's life, and that person is involved in the making of the movie, even if they're just
yeah,
consulting, right?
they get their
Because like,
chance to see how they're represented.
yeah,
Exactly what you're saying. Yeah. Or
the
their
dudes
their
from
state does.
Queen, the surviving dudes from Queen were like involved in the Bohemian Rhapsody movie. I forget the name of the drummer, uh, but I think that he was like specifically one that people called out for like making himself look good in like the biopic and like the way that they came up with "We Will Rock You," like how he took all the credit in the movie. It's something that happens, and it looking at this article, it looks like Weird Al is involved. Or at least he gave a statement on it.
Yeah.
So maybe he's at least consulting. But again, it's like when someone's involved, like they say we're not going to hold anything back, but you can only go so far, right? I'm sure he's had moments where he's done and said awful things, but like he wouldn't put that in the movie
I
or
mean,
tell
he's
somebody to put it
yeah. I mean,
in
he's
the
been
movie.
keeping his nose clean for as long as I can tell, even with Twitter and
Mhm.
stuff. But yeah, we don't know. Like that's the difference between like a biopic and a documentary, right? Like a documentary filmmaker sets out to show you how something was made, but he does that by interviewing multiple people and getting different perspectives on the process. And
Yeah,
even when we do our journalistic integrity stuff with Quake and Doom, like there were disagreements with the team that people calling each
yeah,
other out on Twitter because of the interview we did and what we were just asking the questions. We're not like agreeing with anybody. We're just saying, oh, he says this, okay, we're reporting on it. But in a biopic, it's a little bit different because you have the person involved like has a creative input on it, and it's meant to be entertaining. So because documentaries tend to be long winded, and so yeah,
yeah.
I'm curious to see what they leave in, what they don't leave in. It is a fascinating film, and I'm excited to watch it. Roku seems like a weird place for it, but sure.
It does. Are you gonna go buy a Roku so you can watch the Weird
No,
Al biopic starring Daniel Radcliffe?
no. See, here's the interesting thing about like digital media now is like you can
David
produce
said.
something.
David said those were fun times, Greg. Talking about the Doom and Quake stuff.
Yeah, they were. No, but it's interesting. So now we live in an economy, in a digital ecosystem where Roku can produce this movie, have it exclusively be on Roku or whatever, but then they could sell the streaming rights to whomever, Netflix,
Yeah.
HBO, Hulu, doesn't matter, right? So like maybe it will be exclusive for a week or a month or whatever, and then it might be other places. Depends, because they still get money. Streaming licenses cost money, and that's a lot of people make money on older films and older TV shows.
Yeah, 100%. I personally I like biopics. I've always been very fascinated with them. I think King Richard's probably the most recent one that I've seen. So I'll probably check this out. I mean, I don't know much about the guy, but I think that makes it even more interesting to kind of just get his story as the filmmakers present it, and then do my like internet rabbit hole deep dive afterwards. So there you go, Daniel Radcliffe to play Weird Al Yankovic in a biopic for Roku. That is your bizarre headline of the week. Our next one is a lot less bizarre. It's one what we were expecting at some point here. Moon Knight has gotten its first trailer. Live action Marvel show. I believe it comes out in March. They announced like March 11th or March 9th, somewhere around there. Stars Oscar Isaac, and it is about Moon Knight. A character I only know a little bit about. I know that he's got like dissociative personality disorder. Um, and we see that in the trailer here, where he's like locks himself up when he sleeps. We kind of see Oscar Isaac, who plays Moon Knight, switch between his different personas in there, but we don't see like a lot of like the superhero-y stuff in here. It's more so just kind of showing this guy in his life, and you see him like having hallucinations and all that sorts of stuff, kind of setting that stage.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm a little concerned because Disney has a different way of telling serious stories than other companies, and because Moon Knight, there's many renditions of Moon Knight and different versions of him and stuff like that, and MCU likes to take all of them and kind of put them in a blender. Like my personal favorite Moon Knight is the guy who has no powers. This the representation that I've seen is he's just a crazy dude in a suit with multiple personalities, like Deadpool, right? Minus the healing factor. You know, just an eccentric billionaire like playing Batman essentially, because that's what originally I think originally Moon Knight was parodying Batman as some like just rich guy who puts on a costume and like fights crime. Like that was the whole point.
Uh-huh.
And what I've seen in this trailer, they're trying to do the multiple personality thing, but the problem is Doom Patrol did it so well. I feel like this is gonna fall flat on its ass. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen any episodes of Doom Patrol, but Jane in that movie is multiple personality disorder, and each one of her personalities has a different power. And there's like 30 different personalities inside of her, and you go inside her head, and they have conversations. It's done so incredibly well, so meaningful, and I feel like this is gonna fall flat on its ass. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, looking at the trailer, I think the little glimpse we do get of the suit there looks good. I like some of the like trippy visual stuff they do, like when he's in the elevator and he sees like some like 10-foot like
Yeah.
creature walking up, and then it's just like an old woman getting on the elevator. I like that kind of stuff. I think Oscar Isaac's accent is very weird. He's doing like a British accent here. I don't know. He sounds like he sounds like a kid in like a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie. But other than that, I don't know. I'm indifferent. Again, I'm not like a Moon Knight fan. I don't have any like expectations for that character, so I'll kind of just be like going and seeing what they're doing here. In a very not Marvel-esque fashion. It doesn't seem that they're directly tying it in anything yet. Like we don't see anyone showing up. They're not doing any like we don't see any jumping off points, because you get that a lot in trailers, especially for their newer properties. They'll show like a character from another movie or another show. Um, so I don't know how much of an isolated thing this will be, but it's not far away. March is less than 2 months out.
Is this a movie or a series? I can't remember. I cannot keep track of it all.
It's a series. It's a series. Disney Plus live action series. So it'll be like what they did with like Loki and WandaVision, all that stuff. It'll be episode a week, and then it'll end. Um, and then I assume they'll have another show lined up after it. But I think it looks okay. Now, is Moon Knight affiliated with any like team? Was he part of any groups?
No, I mean, I occasionally, whenever I never read the Moon Knight comics, but whenever I saw him, he would always be like kind of stopping in on either a Daredevil comic or a Spider-Man comic. Like he would definitely,
Okay,
it was
yeah.
definitely New York. He was always in New York, but he would stop by occasionally and help Spider-Man or Daredevil out or Punisher out. You know, because like one of the panels, this was a long time ago. He was just like, "Are you just some crazy guy in a suit?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, but the dude can fight, right?" Like that was the thing. Like everyone said, he can fight. So that's before
Yeah.
he got really weird. Like they're going full on mystical, I think, in this series. Like they're gonna give him crazy ass powers and levels. So I think that's the rendition they're taking, which is unfortunate because I think having no powers makes that character so much more interesting. If he's just a dude in a suit beating the shit out of supernatural creatures, that sign me up, right?
Yeah. It seems like he is very like witty, because when they released the trailer, like I saw a bunch of people on Twitter posting like old comic panels, like I want to see this scene like played out in live action. It was always either like you just said, Daredevil, Spider-Man, or Punisher. Like I saw one where it was like it was him and Punisher, and he's like, "Hey Frank, you still killing people?" And like Punisher's like, "Yeah, you still like seeing ghosts or whatever he was saying to him." And they're like having like back
Yeah,
and forth banter. Um, so I was I don't know. It'd be cool if they tied some of those characters in. We know that Daredevil may or may not be making his return at some point. So
I kind of said that they
which
did a
is
costume reveal in the trailer. Like, cause first of all, like it's very hard to tell if this is real because it looks fake to me. Like it looks like a CGI Moon Knight, like turning to the camera and walking. And I just I hate that they don't put people in costumes anymore. Bugs the shit out of me. I can't tell. I mean, it doesn't look like it looks.
uh,
It's hard to tell.
it looks like it might be like special effect aided. Like he has on a suit, and then they've got it juiced up because obviously like the eyes and stuff, like they've got stuff going on there, and the cape also looked a little weird from the
I
back.
don't think the cape's
But
there. I think he's wearing a bodysuit, and I think the cape is fake because they want it to do weird shit.
mhm.
Yeah, the cape's
I
fake because
like
it's jumping.
I, I like the like mummy wrap aesthetic. It's like an Egyptian kind of thing going on there.
Yeah, that's cool because
Um,
it's like it's so many superhero costumes look like basketballs because they need texture, right? But if you just wrap them in a million bandages, that is the texture, so you don't need to make them look like a basketball. You
yeah,
you laugh, but like look at any superhero movie where they wear
I know
tights. Like
you. I know you talked. We have talked about it, but did you see? Speaking of superhero suits, did you see the Batgirl suit? They shared the first image of
I did. It looks good. It looks good.
Lizzie Grace. I thought so too. I saw people were like, it looks like a CW costume, and I was like, what do you want? I was like, do you want her to look like everybody in the DCEU did in like 2014, or what? But yeah, I thought it looked pretty decent as well. But that's Moon Knight. I mean, there really isn't much to talk about there. It's the first trailer for the show. Oscar Isaac's in it. I think he's pretty solid more often than not. I forget who's like making it director and writer wise. I don't know if they've gotten both
There's a
there.
lot of different.
And,
There's usually the showrunner. I think is the person in charge of like everything. So like
yeah,
how many
yeah.
episodes there are, they're
Mhm,
writing the style, like or he picks out like who does the production design. I think he's the head honcho because
mhm.
every show is going to have a different writer and different director, or they're going to alternate. Every third show will be the same writer, something like that. But
Yep, yep.
I'm interested to see
So
because Doom Patrol did it so well. I have no faith in Disney to do this uh tactfully or like interestingly enough because like all the they're very Disney's very black and white. They're very like, oh no, this is the good guy, he's always the good guy, and this is the bad guy. And so I'm interested to see if like they actually toe a line with a character, like, you know what I mean? Like they're I don't know if you're
mhm.
familiar with Dragon Ball Z, but like they don't have, there's really no like, I guess the closest thing to like a Vegeta in the Marvel universe would be Loki, like someone who's not really a villain or not really a hero, and he's like the only character that's ever
That's
really
fair.
towed that line, I guess. So I mean, but everyone else is pretty straightforward, evil or good. Uh, but I guess that's one I can think of is Loki.
Yeah, I think Loki to Vegeta is actually a pretty good comparison. But I'm sure we'll talk about this show once it gets a bit closer. Once we see it, I imagine I'll talk about it
We'll
on
do
the
some
show.
reviews on it or something. Yeah.
Yeah, something of that effect. So we'll be keeping our eye on it. I'm excited about our next story, just because it's just refreshing. Have stories that aren't big franchises or Marvel or DC whatnot. Um, Bong Joon-ho, who directed many films, but probably most famously Parasite, which won Best Picture at the 2019 Academy Awards. It won Best Picture, and then he also won Best Director that same year. Obviously, coming off a movie that beloved, everyone's looking forward to his next thing. We got some news on it. It's going to be at Warner Brothers, and Robert Pattinson is set to star in it. They say he's in talks to play the starring role. I think they've only said so far that it's going to be another horror film. Even though I wouldn't describe Parasite as. I mean, Parasite is more like social commentary horror. Like it's scary and wow, that is dead accurate, but it's not like people jumping out and things going bump in the night. More of a thriller, I'd say, like a social thriller, like Get Out, that kind of brand of horror. If his next movie is like up that same street, I'm all in. Interesting that Robert Pattinson is the lead. Because it seems that we might be leaning more American with this one. Obviously, Parasite was a Korean film. It was full Korean cast,
Hmm.
subtitled. But I mean, he did Snowpiercer, so I wouldn't be surprised. It's not like a surprise that Pattinson's in it. But I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think Robert Pattinson's a decent actor, and Bong Joon Ho is a great director. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Hollywood's interesting like that. Like they'll take talent and they'll try to mesh it together. I think ever since the first Pirates movie, where like they looked at the casting and like the Pirates of the Caribbean movie is a great example because the casting was all over the place. Like who the hell is our like the guy from Lord of the Rings is in it? Like what? Who the hell is Keira Knightley? Right? Like all over the place. And then like everyone was concerned with how Johnny Depp was playing the character, and the writing was like kind of like it was the perfect storm. Right? That movie was not meant to be a success in a lot of the test screenings and editing process. They thought it was going to flop. So fun fact, and I think I mentioned this on the show before, but that's why you didn't see any Pirates of the Caribbean merch when the movie first came out, because Disney thought it was going to completely fail. And they got caught with their pants down because it ended up being one of the biggest movies of all time, which is hilarious.
Yeah, it was huge.
But yeah, you didn't see any posters, clothes, action figures, nothing, because they thought it was going to completely tank. And then they're like, hey, this is great. Let's do the same thing with Haunted Mansion. And it didn't work. So they tried.
For the record, I liked Haunted Mansion. I said that on the show before.
I don't think there's anything bad. I don't think there's anything bad with that film. I just think like when you have those two movies,
it was
back to back. You're just like, what?
I actually had missed this when I was first looking at the story. So we actually know what the movie is going to be. It's
a book based on a book.
It's based on a book called Mickey 7, which is not out yet, but it's coming out.
It's not even out yet.
Yeah, that author must be like. That author must have like some clout if they're like already working on the movie adaptation of his book that isn't even out yet. Usually those things lag very far behind. So I have to look at what they've written in the past. Must be some good stuff. But nonetheless, the story of the novel, titled Mickey 7, is about a character of that name who is an expendable, a disposable employee on a human expedition sent to colonize the ice world Niflheim. So we're going like sci-fi with this. Okay, I didn't know that. Whenever there's a mission that's too dangerous, even suicidal, the crew turns to Mickey. After one iteration dies, a new body is regenerated with most of his memories intact. After 6 deaths, Mickey 7 understands the terms of his deal and why it was the only colonial position unfilled when he took it. And then it says Peter Dodd is overseeing. That's an interesting concept. It sounds very sci-fi and out there.
It sounds very. What's the movie that Tom Cruise did where there were multiple Tom Cruises? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, Edge of Tomorrow?
Yeah, no, not Edge of Tomorrow. There was another one where like he was on a planet and they were like, spoilers for the old movie, like his job was to like maintain these machines that like sucked the water off the planet because they were going to move the water to another planet. But then you find out that the aliens were stealing the water and that they cloned Tom Cruise and like they had multiple Tom Cruises in different sectors that were all doing the same. It was weird. Sounds a lot like that kind of though, because there's multiple clones of the same character doing things.
Yeah, that I'm not sure what that movie was called.
I can't remember either.
But that sounds similar to what this movie is. With being on the ice planet of Niflheim. I think that's a cool idea. And I assume if Pattinson's gonna star, he'll be that Mickey 7 character. It'll be weird though, because a movie like that, just in its concept, it sounds like it's gonna be CG heavy or special effects heavy if they're gonna be on an ice planet in space, which will be a bit of a contrast from Parasite, where that movie was like super scaled down, set in a handful of locations. Arm Square, I said I forget the title. That was a good.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay,
I heard that film. It was good. Oblivion, yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, it's good. I like that.
Oblivion. Okay, I have to check it out. I don't know if I've heard of Oblivion. When did it come out? Was this like 90s, 2000s?
Mid 2000s, like 2010, 15, something like that. Like it was not that long ago.
Oh, this is more recent. Okay.
But fun fact about like book adaptations is that like it's a lot of studios will just buy movie rights to a book to shelf it to make sure that other studios don't get the option to, and so they have to buy the rights back from them. It's a whole like passive aggressive line of business that studios do. So if there's a book, like there's a book that this other studio might be thinking about purchasing to make a movie, another studio will get the rights first and just shelf it and make them buy the rights from them. It's a weird business way that they do things. It's so fucking weird, but they do it because the license rights for a book is surprisingly not that expensive depending on the book. Like if you're a poor novelist and they offer you $35,000 or $25,000 for your book, like you're not going to say no. You know what I mean? If you're starving, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair, but it is weird how that business goes. Well, I think we could probably move forward from the Bong Joon-ho story. But before we do, should remind folks that last week we announced something called movie nights that we're going to be doing here on Pop Goes the Culture. It's going to be the last Friday of every month. We will be watching a movie with you all, our viewers.
With
Typically,
you.
it'll be a movie. Yeah, with you. We want you to watch a movie with us. We'll typically pick something from Amazon Prime because Twitch has that built-in Prime watch party. Even if you don't have Amazon Prime, you can still watch it on your own if you just pull the movie up and time it with us. But just an incentive for our subscribers, something fun to do, something we've talked about doing on the show a lot since we started it. And our first one will be next Friday, which I believe is January 28th. We have not decided what movie we're going to be watching yet, but we will. We'll make announcements. It'll be on social. We'll talk about it on next week's episode of this show. And then moving forward, we'll probably look to maybe have people vote on what movies we watch. Maybe we'll make it like a game where I decide one month, Greg decides another. But either way, it'll be a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to it. And of course, as all goes back to, hey, supporting the channel, remembering to follow, subscribe. If you got Twitch Prime or Prime Gaming, as it's now dubbed, drop it Shacknews' way. I promise you, we will put that those Bezos bucks to good use. And of course, on Twitter, we are Shacknews, Instagram Shacknews Media, YouTube.com/ShackNewsGames. We are all over the place at this point. Denny, our social media manager slash community manager, he runs all that stuff, does a bang up job. So please keep up with us. And as always, we're always happy to have you guys watching, reading. It is a pleasure. Greg, our next story is about a little show set in the universe of The Lord of the Rings. Amazon announced quite a while ago that they were developing a original live action show set in the world of the Lord of the Rings, and we now know the title of it, The Rings of Power. And it comes out in August, season 1 that is. And they released like a little intro sequence where you just see like the words come down and it's like all melted and stuff like yeah, there you go, you got it. It's like molten steel coming down. Greg, did you know that this intro that you're playing here is 100, well, not 100%, but is like was done practically? Like
Yeah,
they actually
I watched the
poured,
video on it. I was really
yeah,
excited that they did that. I
uh-huh.
was really happy.
Isn't that nuts? It made me think of like the old clips from like original Star Wars where they had like the opening crawl on like a screen and they just held like a camera up as it like scrolled down.
Hmm.
Yeah, that is pretty nuts. That is some damn good craftsmanship. But I think it speaks to like the effort they're putting into this show because although we haven't like seen much of it, every time we hear about it, it's like this is going to be one of the most expensive shows ever made. Amazon is putting like every dollar into making this show like feel like an authentic Lord of the Rings saga, which is exciting. I'm not even a big Lord of the Rings fan, and I'm like excited by what I'm hearing and seeing of the show.
Yeah, and I mean, you
Um,
don't need a huge budget to like make a
mhm,
like. It's a misconception I think that people need hundreds of millions of dollars to do like a fantasy show. Like Game of Thrones is a good example. Most of that show are people talking on location. Like, yeah, you have your
mhm,
battle scenes, yeah, you get your dragons later, but like most of the show, like 70% of the season is people just walking and talking in a location. That's all it is. You know what I mean? Like,
mhm,
so like it's really, you can do it if you're smart enough. And this is going to be obviously a political drama because this is about Sauron giving the rings of power to the 19 kings and queens and lords of Middle Earth as like a kind of a token of like friendship and hey, follow me and look, I made these great rings of power.
yeah,
Obviously, we know what happens because they all fall. But yeah, I know a lot about Lord of the Rings, so I'm the right person to talk to about this show. You've seen the
good.
movies,
I'm good.
Donovan, right? But you've never read the books.
I've seen one of the movies. I haven't seen all of them. I need to watch the rest of them, but they're so long. I've been so scared. But I guess I should before the show comes out.
No,
Um,
it's not animated, Squires. It's live action.
yeah, it's a fully live action show. It's pretty clear like Amazon wants this to be like their premiere, like their Game of Thrones, right? Like their show that goes on for several seasons, event viewing. Everyone signs up to watch it. They're like own version of Stranger Things or whatever. Um, but yeah, it's I saw a lot of people theorizing what the show be about based on the title, Rings of Power, and it seems like it's going like the prequel route, which doesn't always have to be a bad thing.
No, well,
Um,
it's an interesting time period too, because like you've never seen Lord of the Rings films, but a lot of the fans that didn't read the books that saw the films are like, why would you take Rings of Power from a dude named Sauron who looks like that. And like he didn't look like that. He was an elf, but he was a specific type of elf, and he was not like, he didn't look evil. He was like generally just like, oh, here, take these rings. And there were, I think it's 3 or 4 rings, might have been 3 rings that weren't corrupted. So out of the 19 rings, 3 were actually not evil and could actually do positive things. Galadriel has one of the rings. Gandalf has one of the rings, and I forget where the third one is. But yeah, it's interesting. Like, there's a lot of deep lore here, and it'll be fun to see like how the Dwarf Lords fell and how a man fell, the representation of Sauron, and how he, rose to power, and what he looked like before he was like this gigantic 10-foot tall evil thing with a mace. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah. I'm like super looking forward to it. Like, this is good. This is really exciting for me. Elrond has one of the rings. Thank you, Squires. Yes, Elrond has the third one. It was the elven rings that basically weren't touched. So like there's a ring that controls fire, another ring that's something else. But Gandalf has like the fire ring. If you watch, you haven't seen the movies, but when he's talking to the Balrog, which the Balrog's not supposed to have wings, by the way, but he says like, I'm the commander of the Flame of Udun, and he's talking about the ring, the fire ring that he has that helps control fire, or does something with fire. The rings are very like, in the books, they're not really clear what they do. They're just like, oh, they're powerful, and that's all you really know. Yeah. Like, I mean, the invisible, the Lord of the Rings, the one ring turning you invisible is just like one thing it did. You know what I mean? It's like the only thing it practically did, and it really didn't turn you invisible. It just transferred you to the Shadow Realm. So it was like a misconception of what the ring does. It's actually a good camouflage ability too, because people thought it was just a magic ring. But yeah. So I'm a total dork, like total massive dork for this shit. So
that's good. I mean, Lord of the Rings is like massive, beyond massive. So it takes place before like the mainline movies. Does it take place before The Hobbit as well?
Yes.
Would this be after?
It takes place before The Hobbit, I believe. Wait, hold on.
Okay.
Yes, takes place before The Hobbit. Way before The Hobbit.
Okay, so like, we're going like way back.
500 years or something like that before The Hobbit.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I'm curious if we'll see the other Guardians of Middle Earth too, because there are like, Gandalf is like, obviously you've heard Gandalf the Grey, he's one wizard. There's Radagast, the brown, and then there's the 2 blue wizards. Of course, Saruman the white. Like those were all wizards set down from the deities to kind of like help shape Middle Earth and like help the creatures and people and races of human like get along. So like that was their duty when they came down. I'm gonna get real into this shit. We should probably stop. I'm going down this dark rabbit hole of like explaining to you the Silmarillion and what the Guardians did. And... Hey, 1,000 years. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be a good chunk of time separating, which is good though, because I think the issue a lot of times with prequel stuff is they go too like recent. Like even though it takes place before the original stuff, it'll be like right before it. So then they've immediately got like a lid on like everything they can do, where they can go, who they can bring in, stuff like that. So I think going way back is probably the best.
And it's cool because you'll be seeing like certain locations in their prime before they fell, like Minas Tirith before it was like overrun, and like you get to see Gondor like in its prime, like and how they defended the lands from the dark forces. Well, there were no dark forces at the time, so like I'm anxious to see these locations before they were taken over. I mean, we've seen some of these locations in the video games that they did for Shadow of Mordor and its sequel, which was kind of cool. We got to see some cities locations before they fell to the evil, which was kind of to see a fully fledged city that's actually functioning and be like, oh, that's going to be an undead city in 500 years, so.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up the games and how they not even just I mean, obviously the Shadow of Mordor games are great, but even like Lord of the Rings had like a history of some pretty cool video game adaptations. The Lolinator said I really enjoyed the Dark Rabbit Hole. I
don't know if he's being dirty or not.
I was about to say, I was like, Greg, is that a Lord of the Rings
thing? I don't know. I don't remember. Hobbit Hole? I don't know. No, I don't know. The Illuminator sounds like a terrible superhero name. He just glows. It's what he does.
It's like a hero you'd get in the Boys.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of, they did announce that The Boys is getting, or like the season 3 comes out in June, I believe. So that's something to look forward to. Greg, you had something here that you wanted to talk about. I believe the Marvel Zombies tabletop game. If you wanted to talk about that one.
Oh yeah, we did. Well, like they had this. I guess the Kickstarter launched like I don't know, this week, or
Mm.
launched relatively quickly, and it made its funding like instantaneously. And I looked at it, and it's really cool. Have you ever played Zombicide, Donovan?
I feel like I played like Zombicide for like 2 minutes at an event at some point, but not like enough to really speak extensively on it.
So like it's made by the creators of Zombicide, so it's the same mechanics, but in this particular expansion, like you play as the zombified superheroes and you have to kill humans. So it's like the opposite, which is fun. I'm like, that sounds like fun, right?
Yeah.
You just chomp on humans and get stronger as you eat and stuff like that. So I mean, it looks really cool, and I wanted to back it, but like the base game is like $120 or $140, and then the X-Men expansion, which I'm a super sim for, which is the one, which is what I want, is another $120. So it's like $240 to get these two expansions. And if you want the Galactus expansion, it's like another $120. It's like it gets to like $420 to kickstart this. And the thing that I am really disappointed about, because even though it looks cool, is that like Zombicide is a well-known brand that makes a lot of good money. The company's well-known. Marvel is a well-known brand that has money, and like there's no reason this should have been a Kickstarter. It's kind of like insulting to me. It's almost why I don't want to back it, because it's like this shouldn't be Kickstarter. Just release this. Like people are gonna want to buy this, like regardless. It's a Marvel and a Zombicide game. Because I don't know, you weren't part of the Zombicide craze, but when that game came out, there were so many like the Kickstarter exclusive minis were selling for thousands of dollars on eBay. Like if you wanted this special zombie or this rat ogre, it's $500 on eBay when it first came out. I think it's calmed down now, but since then they've done like a Ghostbusters expansion, they've done a Ninja Turtles expansion, like they've done like everything just adding on to the game. It's like my friend described it as the Fortnite of board games, where they just take all this IP and they just implement it into the game, right?
Yeah.
Which is fine, and none of that was kickstarted. Like you could just, the Ninja Turtle thing was just an announcement with IDW, and they just did it. So I don't know why they're doing a Kickstarter. I think that's what they're used to doing, because that's where how the first Zombicide came into being, was Kickstarter. But I just don't know. I mean, how much? It's so much money. I mean, would you spend $130 for this game, or $240 for the X-Men Resistance DLC?
I don't think I would spend that much money for any game of any kind, really.
It's so expensive.
Arnold Square said nice looking tokens. Yeah, it looks really good. Like the video that we're seeing there, it looks like a very cool game, well made. But
what's killing me is this shit. What's killing me is like I'm a simp for X-Men, and like this whole X-Men expansion. But like you don't see them anywhere, right? It's always Avenger crap, and I'm like, okay, cool. But like finally we get like X-Men, and they look great. The models look great, but this is for the other games. So it's like two games. It's two separate games. Like they don't. It's just so weird, and that makes me so angry that I just can't get this one. I have to buy the other one too. Like I can't just buy the X-Men Resistance separately. I'm just it boggles my mind, some of these decisions, like the GameStop bundles they do when there's PS5 shortages. Oh, your PS5 bundle, 5 controllers and 17 games, only $2,000.
Yeah, I don't know. Arm Squire said you're meant to play with a team, right? You could split the cost, I guess. I mean, yeah, it'd be an option if you're like desperate to get your hands on this. Yeah, I don't know. I've wanted to get into more tabletop stuff, because I am admittedly very inexperienced with it, but I'd probably look for a cheaper entry if I could.
I mean, Homicide's a fun game. Homicide's always, to be fair, Homicide's always been expensive because there's a lot of models. But I'm just such a look at these sculpts down here. Like they have a zombie Iceman, a zombie Juggernaut, a zombie Cyclops, a zombie Dark Phoenix. Those models look really good.
It's so the Cyclops is great, where he's holding his head and using it. That is amazing.
And I'm like a big like I said, not only X-Men fan, but like the original Marvel Zombies run was the most creative thing I'd ever think I've read in a comic in a long time, because it originally started out as a Ultimate Fantastic Four story arc. Was where they introduced Marvel Zombies. It was an alternate. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's nothing like the stupid what ifs. Like, throw that in the garbage. It's like an original idea of Reed Richards reaching out to another dimension where they've been infected by a super virus, and it's like the only people left are like Magneto and a couple of humans, like, and like Black Panther, I think too. Like it's just insane. It's a really interesting story. Like you should read the graphic novel of it for Marvel Zombies and Ultimate Fantastic Four. It's a great series of books, great story, and that's part of the reason why I'm drawn to this. But it's just so bloody expensive.
Yeah, Marvel Zombies is pretty big, and they've brought it back a couple times, and done like different runs of it. But no, it seems like a really cool game. Hopefully, you're able to get your hands on it for a more modest price at some point in the future. Army Techno says SMH GME slander. Nope, nope, no GME slander for me. Um, but
Bundles. You have to buy bundles. What if I told you could buy
yeah,
300 shares of GameStop, but we
yeah,
bundled it with 500 shares of Sony? Or something like that. I
yeah.
don't know. That's what they bundle
It's
stuff.
your $950 PS5 with 3 controllers and a copy of Demon Souls and Spider-Man
Yeah,
and
people forget. I
Ratchet and
mean,
Clank.
people forget about that. Do you remember the GameCube? I know we're not supposed to talk about games, but do you remember the GameCube controller fiasco when they re-released the GameCube and fucking GameStop refused to like sell it singly? Like they would bundle it with like 6 controllers. Like, and you're just like, what? I don't want 6 GameCube controllers and the adapter. I just want the fucking adapter and one GameCube controller.
I was a big GameCube fan. I'm on record calling it a retro console, but
On record.
that might predate my days as a consumer. I don't think I was spending money on anything at that point, so that issue might have been above me. I like the box art too on that really well.
Yeah, so it's
Really
just
well
I mean,
done.
seeing these superheroes I don't really see very often, like a zombie, like, and it's kind of interesting when Disney acquired Marvel. There was a company there's a company that did a Marvel Zombies specific bust, and they did Spider-Man, like Captain America, and I have all of them on my shelf here. And there was a great
Mhm.
line. And then when they Disney bought Marvel, they had to renegotiate their contract. So from moving forward, that company, Gentle Giant, wasn't allowed to do heroes as zombies, only villains. It was in their contract. They could only make villain Marvel zombie bust from then on out. So since then, they've made Mysterio, Kingpin, and Doctor Doom, but like they're not allowed to make superheroes anymore. So like the Spider-Man one that I have is like worth almost $1,000 on eBay because they don't make them anymore. Same with the Captain America
Yeah,
one and the Wolverine one because they're not allowed to do superheroes anymore, only villains. Fun fact.
that
Anyway,
is that is bizarre. But also, you got some insurance over there. Got some nice items sitting on the shelf. Uh,
my retirement fund.
yeah, there you go. Sell off the Marvel Zombies figures. Um,
$410.
well,
Jeez.
I told the time in the chat. What's up? Well, Greg, I believe that is going to close out our news stories for this episode of Pop Was the Culture, but that is only really less than half of our show if you count Generational Gap as well, um, because we also are going to do some reviews, talk about some of the movies slash TV shows that Greg and I have watched in recent time.
Oh,
Greg's laughing because
I need
he's laughing
to
because he knows where I'm going.
I need to DoorDash you 3 tacos eventually. For the show. Now I know I'll do it next week. Next week I'll get your address. Not during the show. I'll have him deliver tacos so people can say I can make good on my bets.
Um, yeah, so to fill you in on what we're talking about here, I saw a little movie called Scream last week. If you've watched literally any episode of this show, without getting in the spoilers and
It
stuff,
has the
it's
kid from the
been.
Mighty Ducks in it.
Oh, does it? Which one?
The main kid.
Which?
The main Bobby, right? What's his name?
Wait, I'm not familiar with Mighty Ducks, so I'd have to know who the actor name
Oh
or
my god! I think
the character in Scream.
you've
But
never seen Mighty Ducks, the original underdog story.
yeah, so I mean, this movie takes place in modern day. I believe it's like 2021, and they do that. That's always a big thing of the Scream movies. Is they're always set in the time they come out because a big part of them is they always do like commentary on what horror is like at that time, and it's something I think is very underrated about the series. That it's kind of like a time capsule every movie for like the time they came out in. Like you watch like the '96 Scream, and they're talking about like oh like how Halloween's like washed up, and they're talking about like a Nightmare on Elm Street, and they're like riffing on all these like '80s slashers that at that point were like out of style because it had been like a decade since any of them were good. Um, and then you look at like Scream 4 in 2011, and they talk about like reboot culture and stuff like that, and like remaking like remake. It's more Scream 4 is more about like remake culture, right? And how it's like Hollywood's out of ideas and all that while they're making a remake essentially or a sequel. And Scream 2022, or as I'll just call it Scream 5, has like great they do a great commentary on modern horror. They have like a whole not like running joke, but like they reference what they call like elevated horror, right? Where they talk about like Hereditary, and they talk about like Jordan Peele and The Babadook, and like all these movies that they kind of you didn't really get like 20, 25 years ago when the original Scream came out. And then they also talk about what they call like requel culture, which is it's kind of like the Force Awakens model, right? Where it's like sequel slash reboot, where it's like new cast, old cast, here's the new generation, like that model there.
Yeah, we passed the torch over. Can't call
Because I mean that's the model though. Like I mean, like Star Wars did it. Star Trek not really, but like a lot of big franchises do that, right? Like ones that haven't had like a new movie, they'll get like you'll get Harrison Ford back, or like this one, you get Sidney Prescott back, Nev Campbell, and doing them. And then it's supposed to like pass the torch off to the next generation, and they have some great commentary on that. This movie, and it's something that I'd be very interested for you to have your take on, Greg, if you were to see the movie someday. They have commentary on fandom and online fandom culture and like toxicity in fandom and what people like expect from franchises and how people take like ownership over them and how people get like really pissed off when their like favorite franchise releases like a bad movie or they kill their favorite character and they do stuff like that. um it's got some very fun commentary, I guess is the word I'll use, commentary on that. But then even like taking those layers off, I think it's also just a really decent slasher. Straight up, this movie is probably scarier than any of the other Scream movies. I think Scream One is pretty damn scary, but like they're all very funny. They also have like a level of cheesiness and campiness to them. That's still here as well, but this one is like brutal. Like the kill scenes in this one are like very violent, more so than any of the other four. And I mean, of course, a part of that is just modern filmmaking. You can make stuff look a lot realer than you could in 1996, but like a lot of the scenes are quite brutal. Like burned into my memory. But it's good though. I like when Scream is scary. Ghostface is very good in this movie. I know like a lot of his charm and the way that he like talks to people on the phone. And he's like, "What's your favorite scary movie? What are you doing right now?" There's some great sequences. Particularly the opening is very good, which you see teased in the trailer a little bit with Jenna Ortega's character. That the way that whole scene plays out, I loved. Um, I'm not gonna say who the killers are, but that reveal, I think the way they do it is pretty decent. Um, it's hard because I saw some people were saying like, "Oh, I saw this coming," or I knew like it was gonna be this character, that character, whatnot. And it's like, I mean, when there's only like a cast of X amount of people and you like obsess over every trailer, like I mean, you're gonna put two and two together.
Oh, hi,
But
this is the new character we're showing you right here. Oh, he's definitely not the killer. That guy right there that you just introduced right now.
it's like it can only be so many people. Like if you're gonna put your mind to it, I mean, you can probably deduce. But that's besides the point. Um, I think the old legacy characters are really good in this. David Arquette as Dewey is great. He's in this way more than the other two. Courtney Cox and Nev Campbell, they're in the movie only really in a supporting role. They're not in the movie all that much. They're definitely not the main characters. That would be a Melissa Barrera who's in The Heights, Jenna Ortega, and a bunch of other people. And I have to say, like the new cast in this movie is amazing. They're really good. Um, Jenna Ortega specifically, she like acts like circles around everybody else in this movie. Much better acting than you usually get in these movies, admittedly. Although that core cast is usually pretty good, but for a franchise like this, where like people are so attached to those original three characters, for them to introduce a bunch of new ones and more or less they all hit, um, I was impressed. I liked it quite a bit.
Now, do you have
Jack
to watch the other
Brady,
4 movies to understand what's going on?
in this one, no, you don't, and they catch you up on it in an interesting way. Like when like the killing start, that's not a spoiler that people get killed in this movie. Like when people start getting killed, obviously like the town freaks out, and they straight up tell you like, "Oh yeah, it's like first time this has happened since 2011," which is when Scream 4 came out. Um, and you don't. I mean, of course, I mean it's the fifth movie in the series. If you've seen the other ones, you'll be a bit more in the loop. But I think it more or less does a good job of standing on its own. I would still recommend seeing other ones, but you could definitely just watch it as its own slasher. I mean, you'll miss like Easter eggs. There's like this movie's stuffed with little references and stuff here for people that have seen all of them. But
Do you know why
I
they
think more or
won't
less
call
should
it?
be good.
Do you know why they don't call it Scream 5? Do you know why like they don't put numbers, especially after like it's been 10 or 20 years after the original movie?
Well, yeah, yeah, exactly. Because exactly that. It's been 25 years
Right,
since the first one came
because
out.
they
And
don't
if you
want.
want people to go see it,
Yeah, they
yeah,
don't want people to feel intimidated like they have to watch the first 4 Scream movies to understand Scream 5. So they just call it Scream, which makes it just fucking more confusing because now I have to be like, oh no, not the 1998 one, the 2022 one. I fucking hate that so much.
yeah,
Just call
yeah.
it 5. It's
I,
okay.
I feel I would have called it Scream 5 or 5 Cream, as everybody wanted. for them to make
Five
like the S a
cream.
5. They could have made the S a 5 and then made it like 5 cream. Uh, but again, obviously, well, not obviously, but it's also worth mentioning this is the first Scream film not directed by Wes Craven, who created the first one. He also created Nightmare on Elm Street. He did the first 4 movies. He passed away. I think Wes Craven passed away like 2015, maybe. It's been several. Yeah, I know. That's what scares me. Like with if they make a sequel to this movie, I'm like, I hope it's not the step down that Halloween was to from 2018 to
Yeah.
2021, because that was them. Holy shit. But I think that the Scream franchise more or less has managed to keep it so fresh. I mean, Scream 3 is like understood to be the worst one, but even Scream 3 isn't like an abomination of a movie. It's just like mediocre, which is more than you can say about the worst entry in a lot of other movie series.
Hmm.
But yeah, Final Destination would definitely be in there. Saw is another one that like just goes off the deep end. Scream never really went off the deep end, which I very much appreciate, and always quite liked. So,
Is that girl the killer? She looks like she'd be the killer in this. This is a trailer shot. Is she the killer
who the girl? What's her neck thing?
on the screen right now?
I'm gonna tell you, no, she's not. But
Okay.
I'm not gonna tell you if she was. I'm not gonna be like, yep, you got me. I'm not gonna spoil it. But
I just
no,
that shot. She looks very like they're going for sexy, but it looks very cynical, like very like what's the like dark and twisty and like she's up to no good.
yeah.
Like she's
Well,
about
that
to explain
scene-
her whole plot. Her whole plot. Like right now. That's after this shot. She's gonna explain the whole reason she's doing this. You know.
No, it's something else, and it kind of ties into something they do in the movie, right? Where like a lot of them are trying to figure out who the killer is, and they there's like a lot of finger pointing where they like make cases for all the characters, and they're like, no, you could be the killer because you weren't even at the hospital when blah 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 happened. What were you doing? He's like, I was watching Netflix. So there's a lot of like they play with the idea of all of them being the killer. Like they make cases for all the characters and stuff. So that's what I will say about that. Good morning, X-Man. Damn, I slept good. um, but yes, I
He can't. We don't
I
want to
saw
spoil it
somebody-
because it's been out for so long. I mean, and I can respect that because it's not on demand yet. It's only on. It's Paramount,
Yeah,
so you
it's
think it'd be on
also-
Paramount Plus. It's very odd that it's not.
Yeah, they really wanted to go for box office with it, and it actually made a decent one. I think it made like 31 million on like a 24 million budget in its first weekend.
I remember
which is pretty
seeing
good for it,
see
but,
the dumbest headline was that like it was like Scream 5 beats out Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm like, dude, Spider-Man Home is like its 6th week. Like, fuck off with that headline. Like, give me a
Yeah.
break. Like, come on.
yeah.
It's better
But
than
it had-
Spider-Man. No, it's not. It's
But
just
it had been number one though. Was the I mean
every movie. So
the
here's the
point?
thing. Like every movie. Like so, I hate that tagline because in marketing they use it all the fucking time. But if you're the only movie that comes out that weekend that's new, of course you're gonna be the fucking #1 movie in America. If you're the only movie that comes out that weekend, like you're the only thing literally to
like,
see it, drives me nuts. Drives
like
me
a New York
absolutely
Times
nuts.
bestseller.
Yeah, I mean, like if you release it with enough room between like No Way Home and Scream.
A bit more, but I won't hold up our I won't hold us up on Scream talk much more. I'll just say I recommend it if you were thinking of seeing it or had an interest. I would say it's definitely 100% worth seeing. Greg, I had another show I watched, but I was gonna open the floor if you had something you wanted to talk about. If you've seen
Yeah,
anything.
I saw Let There Be
Recently.
Carnage.
Oh, you did.
I did.
What'd you think?
It was probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It was all over the place, like, and I could feel like the director and the writer were like, "We're gonna make people feel for Cletus Cassie." I'm like, "No, dude, just fuck off. Just make him a psycho." Nope, they're gonna. Okay, they're gonna. Yep, you're doing it. Okay, yeah, I don't care. It was so. The writing was so bad. The visual effects were all over the place. Like, I don't understand why the entire final battle had to be in front of a green screen. Like, they made Carnage like gigantic. And I was just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, Carnage is supposed to be slim and slender, and he elongates and makes, like, sharp shrapnel weapons. They, like, broke, like, they kept breaking my, immersion when, like, Carnage did some crazy shit with him, like, make a hole within himself. I'm like, what? Like, where's the body that's inside there? Why is he 25 feet tall? Like, it made no sense. Obviously, I don't think the person... It's the guy who plays Gollum. What's the actor's name? The director?
Andy Serkis.
I don't think Andy Serkis has read a Venom comic in his entire life. So I really don't think he understood the character. I think he went way parsy with the special effects. Shriek is in the comics and she joins Carnage because she likes him, like 'cause she's crazy too. But like it's such a stupid plot device. It's like, obviously she's going to like scream and kill Carnage on accident or cause a ruckus. It's a wild card. You're like, why is she there? Like, sounds bad. And then like there was that scene at the end, spoilers for the terrible movie, where he's like, oh, they're not in symbiosis. And I was like, the whole point of like this working together is because they have symbiosis. Like, Carnage is just going to die then. Cletus Cassidy's going to die because when they're not in this universe, when they're not compatible, they just kill their host. So all he has to do is play the waiting game and Carnage is dead. So I'm like, this making the whole fight pointless because they kill people really quickly. It's like a few hours sometimes. And I didn't like how like Carnage was his own character and Cletus was his own character. The whole point of like Carnage being on Cletus was like they were Carnage. They are Carnage. Like, there is no Cletus Cassidy. It's just Carnage, right? So I think it completely missed the mark on so many things. And that last, the Act 3, my fucking God, that battle went on forever. And like, it's just, I'm bored. I'm like, wow, look, CGI people getting thrown out of a room. This is fun. It was just so bad. It's probably one of the worst superhero movies I've ever seen.
Didn't like it. We both talked about we didn't like the first Venom. I didn't think I was gonna like the second one, and I didn't. It's not a good movie. But Axeman does bring up a good point. Said I like the new husband a lot more though. He actually had a role. The new husband was funny. Michelle Williams, when they had like the scenes where like Eddie would be talking to like her and her new husband, I thought he was pretty funny. And he's not in it too much, but when he pops up, he's pretty good. I can give them that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the story, like we've talked about the first movie. The first movie, what's great about the movie is everything with Eddie and Venom is great. Eddie and the symbiote is fucking great. Like, make a whole movie on that. But they have like side characters and villains. You're like, no, just cut all that out. Just have Eddie and Venom. You don't need other things. Just have them, like, make a sitcom. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see a movie. I don't want to see a high-octane thriller. I want to see a sitcom.
It was a buddy cop movie,
right?
Axeman says, which is actually, that's a good way to describe it. Yeah, just buddy cop is the first Venom. Even though I still don't like it all that much, I can give you, that part was very good. But no.
Oh, also,
I was also.
They weren't clear on, and like, why does Carnage want to kill Venom? Like, that makes no sense. Like, the motives were just completely like, if you've read the comics and were like religious about those characters, you know that it's in the symbiote's nature to like kill their parent. Like, it's kind of like a evolution thing. Like, it's like, but they're not. Yeah. It doesn't explain that. Carnage is like, we have to kill Venom, and you're like, why? Like, it's not explained. It's just like, well, because I'm evil. Why are you evil? Like, they just missed the mark, you know, of like, they could have compared why Venom is different from Carnage, but they didn't go down that route. They made it a high-octane thrill ride that spent way too much time on Cletus Cassidy's character. Way too much time. You don't need to spend that much time. He's a psychopathic serial killer. Done. You know what I mean? Like, move on.
And I wish they had made Cletus Cassidy more menacing. He's so, like, goofy. Like, obviously, he's still, like, a terrible person. And, I don't know, I like Woody Harrelson, but he's so weird in that role in that movie. Because the thing about Cletus Cassidy is, like, you're supposed to, like, fear him. It's just like, this is, like, an unhinged person that will literally do anything. He'll kill anybody, does not give a damn.
Yeah, no empathy, no emotion, and that's what makes him so dangerous. He has no empathy. Yeah. Like, no emotions. Like, he's completely soulless, yeah.
But this one felt like somebody, like, plucked out of, like, a sitcom or, like, a villain from, like, a Disney Channel movie. And I was like, I don't know. It was weird.
I'm gonna make you feel for him. I know that's what the writer was thinking. And it's just like, no. Stop. Like,
yeah, it is very bizarre. But yeah, Venom: Let There Be Carnage. That is certainly a movie.
Garbage film. Garbage. Trash film.
It is a movie that was made and came out in theaters. That's true. That's my favorite thing to say when I like see something like I'm like, that is a movie that exists.
That is a movie. It's a movie. That's why I kind of wish that it was, that my original theory was right, because I wanted you to be in that scene like Randy Marsh in South Park. Oh, ha ha, that's not the real killer. Okay, all right, play the real movie. Like, nice fan film, guys. Ha ha. Just not leaving your seat.
Is this Clue? Are there multiple endings?
Where do I vote on my phone for the good ending? Where's that one?
Oh boy.
But it's interesting. So yeah, that was a movie I saw and it was fucking ass. Sorry, I'm pretty hard on movies in general. The shut your brain off excuse, I just hate that so much. You guys shut your brain off, because when you do that for every movie, then you're failing as a filmmaker if you have to say that about your movie, because everyone does that. That's their excuse if no one likes a movie. Well, it's a high octane thriller. You're supposed to turn your brain off and enjoy. It's like, no. You can make a smart movie just like this movie. This movie could have been a gore porn kill fest, but it sounds like they actually, in Scream 5, but they actually sounds like they took their time and developed characters and made it more about the mystery and like gave a shit. You know what I mean? So. Like,
Yeah, it's there's definitely you can definitely meet in the middle.
Hmm.
It can be both. There's also a show, Greg, that I watched. I binged, which I'm not
Ooh,
much of a binger,
Book of
but I
Boba
binged the
Fett.
show in like 2 days. No, not Book of Boba Fett. Don't
Oh,
lie, I'm watching that show, which isn't that great. It's just okay. But there's a show that is good that's out right now called Yellow Jackets, which I feel like has been all over the place. People have been raving about it on social media. It's on Showtime. Maybe that's why I binged it because I was on like a free trial or some shit. I don't know. But essentially, tells a story, Greg. Of it's an original story. It's about I think it's original. I don't know. It tells a story of a high school girls soccer team that experiences a plane crash. Their plane crashes on the way to like a national tournament, um, and they crash in like the Ontario wilderness, like thousands or I guess hundreds of miles away from like any civilization, town, city, whatnot, and they're pretty much like stranded. And it's kind of like their slow descent into like tribalistic, like cannibalism, like all sorts of really dark shit. Because I think they're stuck in there in total for like a year and a half that they were like stranded in the wilderness. But the cool thing it does is it's like a dual story because this happens in like 1996. So then the other half of the show is them in modern day in like
showing
2021
each
or
character's
whenever.
lives, right, and then showing them in
Yeah,
yeah who they were before the plane
it's
crash.
mhm. It's like them now is like 40-year olds or like late 30s. I don't know how the time would work out, but like late 30s, 40-year olds like trying to like live like a regular life after like the crazy shit that they experienced and did out there. And obviously, like not everyone survived the plane crash, not everyone survived the like ensuing stuff, but like some people did. So it's like you see like the people that made it back in modern day, and there's like one character that's like running for local office, but she's like afraid like someone's gonna like expose what they did back in the original, like when they were out there. Um, there's like effed up like things that they do to each other and like that happens when they're out in like the wilderness for that year and a half, that they kind of cover up when they
Hmm.
come back, and it's like a lot of that past comes to bite them in the ass. So it's cool. It's like it's a very good like dual story, with half of it taking place 25 years ago and the other half taking place in modern day. um I would highly recommend it.
So
It's
X-Men's
cool.
right. So this is based off the event that happened with the Brazilian soccer team that crashed, and some of them had to resulted in cannibalism. It did. I think it was pretty vague, but I remember that I do
it,
think remember that story in the news where the plane crashed somewhere in like a mountain area, and then they rescued them like I
mhm.
think 60 days later, but some of them had resulted to cannibalism. And that's what it is. It's
Yeah,
based on that's the concept, and then they kind of throw in a you've had to have you read Lord of the Flies?
I haven't, but I know what it is.
Right. So and
I
then
know.
the policy of like how we all have animalistic tendencies, and how when push comes to shove, like we will do anything to survive, and the human race, the human condition, as we need to survive and eat and thrive, and
Yeah.
then going back after you do all those things, can you integrate back into society? I'm not saying it's not a new concept. Obviously that's a concept, so it's
Mhm.
interesting, but it takes different things. It sounds like it meshes them together, and it sounds like it kept your interest, which is good.
Yeah, for sure. It's 10 episodes. Um I would say it's very good. But it's, yeah, it's interesting because like all the characters are not likable, but like they're all very good. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a very well written show.
Right.
All the relationships are super interesting. Um, Even like before they even get on the plane, like there's a lot of narratives going in, stuff that kind of like has ramifications for modern day. I don't want to like spoil any of it, but it's great. And there's actually one of the characters in this was in Scream, which was funny because I didn't know that. And I watched them like back to back days, and I was like, oh shit. Um, But yes, I think they already announced that like season two is going into production soon, or it's supposed to come out like end of this year, beginning of next year at some point. But Yellow Jackets, quite a good television
Quite a
program.
ride. I
I would
mean,
recommend.
it's got a diverse cast. I mean, I like I said, this is where people are experimenting. Is the for service. So I guess you have to have a Showtime subscription or something. But if you have a Showtime subscription, you can like watch it through Hulu or something weird. Is this
Yeah,
Showtime's
I
one
was
of
gonna
those
say you
things?
can do
Is
like
yeah.
the add-on.
So I mean,
For
it's
sure.
this is where they're trying their new stuff, and I can definitely like be thankful for that they're doing stuff new. Even if the themes, I mean, all movies you break them down, they're all very similar in theme or characters or tropes, just because those are what works in storytelling. You know, what I mean, it's always what it is.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but I would recommend it. I guess only disclaimer I would give is like if you have a thing with like gore or people eating people, maybe don't watch it. Because I, don't know, I was like, I was watching it and they actually don't really get deep into a lot of the cannibalism stuff. They just kind of give you glimpses and flashes. I think they're setting up a lot of that for the future seasons. But it was giving me like The Hills Have Eyes, Texas Chainsaw, like flashbacks. I was like, okay. I was not like the right state of mind to start watching this show right now. When I'm like sitting here eating like chicken wings.
It plays back. It plays back to the thing is like we act like we're this evolved species, but when like push comes to shove, we're just as violent and ruthless as any other animal, right? That's the whole like kind of theme.
We'll do anything to survive. This, that, and so on. So yeah, that is a big thumbs up for me. Axeman mentioned just saw the ad for the Ray Donovan movie. Is that a movie? I didn't know that. I knew that there was a show. I didn't know they were making a movie out of it. I was just seeing trailers for it. That's also Showtime. Interesting. Yeah, I've never seen Ray Donovan. I've just been called Ray Donovan a lot because my name is Donovan. But that's my
Ray Donovan.
That's the extent of my knowledge of that show is that people call me the name of the character.
My name's Donovan. Ray Donovan.
Yeah, maybe that's also start telling people my middle name or last name is Donovan. Just come up with like a stage name. But yeah, I think that's it for reviews. Unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about, we could get in some potential generational gap challenge. Maybe.
Just want to mention Wheel of Time is a great show. Wheel of Time's great.
Oh yeah, I forgot Wheel of Time.
It's a good show. It's fun. Lots of world building, interesting characters. High fantasy. It's done very well. Kept my interest. Like I'm all about world building. Like if you can build a world for me, like I'll instantly buy it. I don't care if the dialogue's bad or the story's bad. If the world is interesting, you can suck me in. And that's basically what that show does. Like that world and the economics and how magic works and the factions and the areas and the wars. It's all political and it's fun. A lot of fun. It's on Amazon Prime. You should watch it. If you like fantasy, you'll enjoy it.
Nice. Have they finished that season? I know they were like releasing the episodes.
Yeah, we watched the season finale. And it leaves off well. It's very interesting. I really enjoyed it, though. Again, super diverse cast. Like it's lots of diversity. It's not just 5 white dudes on a mission, which is great. Can I say that? Am I going to get canceled?
That is good. Have you read the Wheel of Time books? I know that like people really like.
No, I haven't.
Yeah. I know that like because when they announced the show, like I guess I follow a bunch of people that read the book. They were like, "Oh my god, this is going to be amazing." So that's good though that they've put out a good product there, and I guess that'll tide people over to Lord of the Rings. That's going to be another like big fantasy thing on Amazon Prime this year. So they've definitely got their cards lined up.
Blake would actually like it a lot because each one of the wizards in the show has like a guardian. It's like a partner, like they're like a hetero life mate. Like sometimes they're romantically involved, but other times they're just really good friends and close. They're called a warden, and the warden like protects them, and they're just like super. They're not magical. They just have super skilled like fighters, right? And so like one of the main characters, wardens, is basically a samurai. And he has the whole get up, and he uses the sword, and he fights like a feudal Japan. It's really cool, and Blake would get a kick out of that. And he's one of the main characters, and it's just really fun to see that kind of diversity because they lean. I think the books. I want to say they're Japanese. I want to think they're written in Asia, or I don't think they're American books. Let me check. But if only I had an ability to check something and see who wrote the books. No, it's Arthur Jordan. Okay, but there's a ton of like, at least in the series, a lot of feudal Japan and a lot of Asian inspired armor and weapons and locations and stuff like that. So he might like that a lot because he's it's his handle on Twitter is samurai, right? So
you'll have to recommend that to him.
Oh, Proof Robot. Proof Robot is his tag. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, if he hasn't already checked it out, definitely bring that one up to him. Well, I think we're going to do a good old round here of the Generational Gap Challenge.
Oh, God. Tell him what's it about, Donovan.
I will. If you haven't noticed, Greg and I, we grew up with different eras of pop culture. So we usually know a lot about some things and not so much about other things, kind of counterbalance each other in that way. But Greg came up with a segment, Generational Gap Challenge. It's a fun little way to end our show where we quiz each other on stuff from our respective generations. Greg will ask me stuff from like usually like 80s, 90s, and I'll ask stuff that's like 2000s, even 2010s, stuff that I'm more familiar with. And it's always a fun learning experience either way, isn't it, Greg?
Depending if I go first, that's how many Miley Cyrus Nickelodeon questions I get if I'm too hard on the first questions. That's how I can always tell. Are we ready to play Generational Gap Challenge?
We are. I'll let you decide. Would you like to go first, or should I go first?
I
I'm
will
down
go
to do
first,
either.
and I'll go in order of difficulty. I think mine's
Oh,
may
okay.
have been too easy. Oops, let me get one. It's an identify the object, and I'll go in order. All right, let's get this up. So on your screen, Donovan, can you identify this object?
All right. Let me close chat so I don't see the answer here. Oh man, it's funny. I see that and I immediately think of Scream because that's like the landline that they use. It's a it's like a landline, like a home phone. What other names for the telephone?
It is a phone, but it's a type of phone.
Telephone, home phone, landline. Yeah, those kind of phones. The ones that you would. Is it dial up? I don't know. I think
There's
I
two
had to have
types.
said it right.
There's two types of phones, and you're getting it wrong.
I mean, it's not a cell phone, is it? Is it a cell phone?
Is it?
Oh, well, I guess cell phone. Yeah. Oh, was that like the first cell phone or something? Back when they had those doodads. Back in the day.
Yeah, it is. This is that. I'll give it to you, even though you were like, it's a landline. It's not a landline. This was one of the world's first portable phones. You would keep this in your car, and it weighed like 10 pounds, and you would never have service. It was ridiculous. Like my dad had one, and he'd had it in the car if people needed for emergencies. And the phone was expensive. The service was astronomically expensive, and like it never worked well. It never ever worked well. And like actually, one of the first portable phones was in the 80s, but they were even bigger and heavier and more expensive. So this was the early 90s, but still, yeah. I'll give it to you.
Interesting.
I'll give it to you.
Nice. Are there more pictures?
Yes, there are. There are. So identify this next picture. Probably gonna get flagged for the Jeopardy theme.
It's a projector.
Yes,
Like you would use in a classroom. Yep.
that is correct. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
They were very loud and they were good in the morning because they got super hot and smelled like hot dust when they turned on.
Yeah, so we definitely had these. Like, they probably stopped using these around when I was in like elementary school. I got through like fourth and fifth grade. Once I got like middle high schools when they started having like the actual smart boards in the classrooms. But I have a lot of memories of these in elementary of like when they would put like the little translucent sheet up on there and they'd like write with marker and it would project them on the screen.
They do math
And then, like,
equations. Yeah.
I would hit like being in math class and like the teacher, they'd have like a student come up and write on it, like if you were like answering a question, and you go up there and it's like blinding light, just like blasting in the face.
Yeah,
Like,
and heat.
it's probably why I wear
It's hot,
glasses
too.
now. Yeah, and it's like 80 degrees, like within a 10-foot radius of these things. Had to be like 5 years waiting to happen.
Grease pencil. It was the very first Apple iPod. I don't know. Looks
Yeah,
really weird
the
though.
overhead projector, that thing's like a dinosaur now. Like just looking at it, I'm like, man, I can't. That is a relic of the past.
They
It's
do,
like
and
something you see
they
at
like
dentist
last
office.
forever. Like my wife's school has some, and they still because they're
Really?
30 years old, but they're like built like a Nintendo system, so like they just don't break. You know what I mean? Because they're so simple, so they just don't break.
Yeah, no, it's cool though, because like again, when I got to high school and the technology was so cool, they had like these smart boards and they were in every classroom, and like there were still chalkboards, but they had like these installed, like hard installed on top of them. They're like these big white like boards, and there was still a projector like that hung from the ceiling that would go onto them, but there was just like a pencil, like you would have like an Apple pencil or like a Microsoft Surface pencil. You just write on it, and it was super cool. And I remember like even like when we first got to school, like to that school in ninth grade, like people would like volunteer to go up and answer questions just because they wanted to like write with it, because at that like the technology was so young at that point. And I think they had remodeled my high school like 3 years before I got to it, so it was still like super fresh when we got there, and all the stuff was like still brand new. I remember that being like a big thing everybody was hyped about, because we were going from like this one year to that like the very next year, so it was a very cool transition.
All right, and that's your 2 for 2. And then the last question is, you'll probably know this too. What identify this object?
All right. Oh, I know what it is, and you're gonna be ashamed as to why I know, but that's a pager, correct?
Yeah, pager or beeper. We will accept both.
So like my mom has like told me about like pagers and what they're like and all that, but the reason I know it from looking at it is from at the end, the post-credit scene in Avengers Infinity War, where Nick Fury uses the pager to
Oh my god.
contact to I sounds like you're gonna be annoyed when I tell you, but when he uses it to call for help, when he uses it to call like Captain Marvel at the end when he's about to get like he's getting like turned to dust and he pulls out the pager and then before he can like he hits the button but before he could speak into it, he gets like dusted and he's like motherfucker, and then he dies. Well, he doesn't die, he gets dusted, and then the pager hits the ground and it like beeps and it beeps and you just see like the Captain Marvel logo pop up. But that's like seeing it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the pager.
It was the dumbest. It was
Yeah.
the worst end credit sequence ever because she didn't even
Nah, that
show
was a
up
good end
until
credit
at
scene.
the very end, and like she wasn't even there the whole time. And she
No.
comes, she's like, "I'm here
She's
now."
in, she's in the beginning of Endgame. She's in the very beginning. She's in the opening scene.
Then
She's
why
in the middle.
does she not come and help everyone till the very end when everything looks the grimmest? Captain Marvel shows up finally, and you're like, "Oh, fuck off!"
Well,
Like,
she had to go off world and help
Right.
with other stuff.
right? We
She's not
we
Earth's.
can't worry about Thanos destroying the
She's not
galaxy. We got
Earth's
we got to
hero.
do this thing over here.
Well,
Universal
She
threat.
didn't know that she didn't know that they succeeded. She was like, "I'm not doing your time travel bullshit." She didn't know they succeeded until shit started to hit the fan.
That's because
As
Nova
she
Corps
said,
are
she had-
idiots.
She
That's-
had she had other shoot. Well, the Nova Corps are the Nova Corps. But yeah, also I got it right. He said it's an effing page of Donovan. I said that.
yeah, he got it. He got it.
Pager.
You might have gotten a delay. That's 3 for 3. You get DJ air horns now.
I like that this one was all like old technology themed.
Yeah.
That's good. I gotta do one like that. But I guess it'll just be new technology. Like, what is this? Just like an iPhone 13. Greg, what is this device?
What is this device? I wouldn't know what version
Um,
it is. I would just know it's an iPhone because there's so many versions.
Oh yeah, maybe I'll do that. Like, which iPhone is this?
Oh,
Like
fuck
an
me, yeah.
iPhone 8.
Sorry, Greg. That's the iPhone 11 1B XM XR Light Edition.
Like, yeah, it's not the answer we were looking for. Sorry. Tape delay over here. All right. Well, great. That was like one of the best performances I've had. I guess I can go easy on you for your questions.
We did it, fam.
All right, Greg.
He's putting away the Nickelodeon My Size questions. I'm so happy.
Like, all right, no Hannah Montana questions this week. Great. Actually, these might not all be easy. All right. Margot Robbie, Greg. We were talking about biopics earlier.
Yes.
She plays a very well-known figure skater in this 2017 movie.
Is it the one that had both of their legs broken? Is it that biopic?
You're on the right track.
Yeah, I don't remember, but I know that was an infamous story, like online, how like that skater was mad that another skater was better than her, so she paid some guy to break her legs. That's fucking awful.
Yeah, so you don't even know like the name of the skater, the infamous figure skater.
I don't remember the video, but I do know the story. I do remember the story.
It is the movie is I, Tanya. It's about Tanya Harding as the skater. I also said you had me at Margot Robbie. Me too. That's one of the main reasons I watched this movie. But yeah, no, that's it. She was an upcoming skater, very rough upbringing, and then yeah, it's like the infamous stories like before the Olympics or something. Where forget the name of the other figure skater, Nancy Kerrigan. That's who it was. Where her like ex-husband like conspired to have her injured. And I think that the way that they do the biopic is actually really cool because we talked earlier about like the issue with a lot of biopics is like the real people are involved and they make sure that they're seen in like not the worst light. Well, like the whole way that they structure this biopic is they do like an unreliable narrator presentation where like Tanya Harding, as played by Margot Robbie, is like telling you what happened, and you'll see an event as how she remembered it, and then they'll like show another character and they'll tell you what happened. You're like, okay, well here's what really happened, and then you'll see how they remembered it. And it plays on like you can't really take anyone's story because this event like everyone says it happened a different way, and to this day we still don't really have like an actual definitive 100% answer. It's very well done in that respect. I quite liked it. Hey, Weekend Geek Blake subscribed 30 months in a row.
30 months. That's almost
What
3
is up?
years. 2.5 years.
It's true. All right, Greg.
Oh for 1. Not a great start.
Your next question. In the hit children's television show Dora the Explorer, what was the name of her monkey companion?
all I'm thinking about is the Robot Chicken episodes of Dora the Explorer. That's all I think about. Mio Sodora! I can't remember. The monkey? I don't know. She had a monkey. I know she had a travel companion. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. I've never watched. I know of Dora the Explorer. I know what she does.
Show ran from 2000 to 2019. Quite the.
Yeah, sophomore in high school. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the monkey's name is. I have no clue.
Right, that's so unfortunate. The name of the monkey was Boots. Boots.
That makes sense.
He had like these big like red boots that he wore. He was great. Dora was a great show. It was a great children's program. It was entertaining and it taught you Spanish. Not that I learned anything, but it's good that they tried. I'm sure that there's somebody out there that learned Spanish from that show, even though it wasn't me. All right. I was wondering if you get that one, and I was like, I'm not Greg Dora. It's okay.
I'm 0 for 2.
Sorry, it's after your time. All right. Now I'm curious about my last one here. Okay. This movie is about a 2018 American comedy movie, Greg. Stars Rachel McAdams, Jason Bateman, and essentially it is about like a night of like tabletop gaming that not comes to life but becomes like a real criminal like event. Are you familiar with this one?
Yeah,
I'm trying not to.
It's game night. I just watched that like it's funny. I just watched that last week and it was okay. Like I don't know.
It is game night. Really, I liked game night when I saw it all those years ago. 4 years ago.
Jason Bateman, all the stuff he does is real. Like he either knocks it out of the park or it's completely like trash. Like it's really interesting. Like his stuff that he does, like it's really good or really bad. Like there's no in between. You know, his movies are good or bad. So it's interesting.
That's fair. I like Rachel McAdams and I thought Jesse Plemons was really good. Like the weird neighbor. Let's see, awesome dude. He said backpack. Yeah.
How Stella got her groove back. Final answer.
No. We're sorry we can't give you the point for that one.
No, yeah, that's funny.
But no,
yeah, so I got one out of 3. The kids ones are tough because it's like in high school, if I was watching programs designed for middle schoolers, it probably would have been questionable. Like people are like, why are you watching all 4 seasons of Dora the Explorer? Like you have a TV with cable. I know that's a weird thing to say nowadays, with like 200 channels, and I'm watching Dora the Explorer. Like that would be kind of like my parents would be concerned. It's tough. That's tough.
Might raise some questions. I'll admit. Axman said, like all the other party guests, were whack and angered me. Yeah. See, I like Jesse Plemons' character a lot, the like neighbor, because I love the like recurring joke where like he just wanted to be a part of the game night, and like they were trying to cover up that they were having a party. They're like coming back from the grocery store, and they had like 4 bags of like chips, and like they're like dipping everything. He's like, what do you got there? And they're like, oh yeah, you know.
There's some really good scenes in that film that if comedy works best when it's relatable and when it's semi-realistic. So like when he's using the computer to search for the person and he gets the blood all over the dog, and it just kind of goes like, I could see that happening to someone like me. Like shit, like the dog's covered in blood now, everything's covered in blood. Like let's just go. We're leaving right now. We just gotta go.
Yeah.
From bad to worse.
Oh, that is creepy Todd. Okay. Yeah, he's good. Also, his nephews love Dora. Me too. Dora was good. You know, I never saw the movie they did. They did a live action Dora movie like a couple years ago. That the idea of it just terrified me, so I acted like it didn't exist. And that worked out pretty well for me. Well, Greg, we've done our questions. That was a good generational gap challenge. I think I might have to steal your technology theme for one, but I'll have to put a creative spin on it because I can't just be like today's technology. I can't just show you like an iPad.
Yeah, I probably used it at one point. But, yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. It had to be like some more outside the box stuff. We'll see. I'll have to force myself to be creative. But either way, folks, that was our 50th episode of Pop Goes the Culture. Been exciting doing the show for over a year at this point. We still have a lot of exciting stuff coming. We talked about it earlier in the show, but movie nights starts next week, Friday, January 28th. We will let you know our movie soon, probably ahead of our next show, but I'm sure we'll talk about it there as well. It'll be sometime after the dump, so like late afternoon, early evening, depending what time zone you're in. Um, we're gonna watch a movie here live on stream, and we're gonna do it through Prime Watch Party so that we don't get yoinked off of Twitch. But we're looking forward to that, and we hope you join us. As always, I am Donovan Erskine, news editor at Shacknews. That is Greg Burke, our illustrious head of video, and we will see you guys next Thursday. Take care.